Well, we should probably get started, right? Out of respect for those of you who actually did show up on time. We should probably start. You're welcome to boo anyone who comes in late. That's permitted. You're allowed to do that. And unless you think a lot of people are going to come. Right? There's two more. Wait for that. She's on time. She doesn't get booed. Morning. How are you? Good, thanks. Morning. How are you? Good. Oh, really well, thanks. This is so blurry. Ugh. Okay, we'll see how we do. Everyone have coffee? Everyone ready? Settle in, strap in. This is not going to be exciting, I promise. But it's going to be really useful. That's, I don't know that that's a big selling feature, but we try, right? My name's Chris. I'm from a company called Protect Your Boundaries. How many of you guys have come to seminars that I've done here before? This seminar is called How to Read and Use a Survey Plan in Real Estate, and it's part of a 6-part seminar series that covers everything from title insurance and how it really works, to easements and right-of-ways, to boundary disputes, everything that has to do with the house that you're selling or buying, but the boundary, the extent of title. And one of the things that I love to just continue to remind myself of, and you guys too, is the fact that never forget that even though your client is incredibly interested in falling in love with the house, what's actually being transacted is land at the end of the day. It just happens to have a building on it. But it's actually land that gets that is being transacted. And so because of that, it's really important to not forget about how big that piece of land is, where it ends, where it starts, where it ends, where the next piece of land starts. And where this piece of land ends and the next piece of land starts is the boundary. And so to not be fully aware of where those boundaries are of a property, and to not be able to represent a property with absolute certainty as what the accepted title is, puts you and your client, whether you're on the listing side or the buying side, at risk. And it's at risk for you in terms of being accused of not representing it, not disclosing anything properly, misrepresenting information. If you're on the buying side, you put your client at risk of buying something and ending up with something that actually isn't what they thought they bought. There's all kinds of ramifications for that. So, oh, here we go. A few more. Hi, how are you? Come on in. It's inevitable. You start the intro, and that's what you'll show on. So, I'm just going to grab this door. There we go, that's better. So today, what we're going to talk about is how to read and use a survey plan in real estate. It's a really simple set of instructions I'm going to give you today. And it's going to be broken down into 2 parts. We'll get to a demo in a second, into an example in a second. It's going to be broken down into 2 parts that are so important for you guys to pick up on. I promise you that going through this, and if you apply everything you learned today, that it isn't going to add more than 20 minutes to an entire transaction. But it is going to add an invaluable level of risk management and risk avoidance to you and your clients. And so the reward out of this, in terms of relative to the investment you put in, is really, really high. Good morning. So, let's start off with an example. Have any of you seen this example from me before? I don't think so. I love this one. It's one of my favorite ones. You're going to say to me it's an outrageous example. That never happens. Trust me. It happens all the time. So this is a beautiful property out in the East End. It's actually, I think, with the Ajax area. We do have a pointer here, yeah. So Queen Street here, a beautiful mansion there. Oh, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Do you live there? Does anyone live here? No? Okay, good. Did anyone buy this or sell this recently? I need to know, because you need to leave. Not really. Right. As you see here, there's a nice big pool in the backyard with some poured concrete and all kinds of beautiful features around it. A huge, great garage for, I don't know, at least 7 cars in there, I think. Whatever, I don't know. But what's important here is that what I've done on here, and this is just in PowerPoint, putting a line. This isn't a precise boundary. But what I'm trying to show here is that if we were going to show up to this property and just take a look, we would assume that the boundary is where the tree line is. because the tree line goes down the side, all the way from here, all the way down the side, and all the way across the back and down to here. And you look at it and you say, okay, that's probably the boundary. You ask the owner, where's the boundary? It's not where the trees are. It's obvious, right? And so if you proceed with listing in this manner, you are proceeding just a visual inspection of where the boundary is, and you are making assumptions based on what you see and what you're being told by the owner. That's a really dangerous thing to do. So, just so you know, the reason why we know this one really, really well is that our client is the developer. Oh, our client was the developer who bought the school to turn it into townhomes. And so when we surveyed this property, we realized it was a subdivision. So let's dig into the issue. There's the property. Again, the street now is up at the top there. Here's the back. And oh no, please, I don't want to do this. Here's a survey. I don't expect you can't even see that, but nonetheless. Here's a survey of the back of that property. What we're actually looking at is a zoom in of this area here on the survey. And what's interesting about this is as we start highlighting things, we'll get the idea in a second. But it's a topographic survey, so it shows some specific trees. Right there, what it's showing us is the trees across the back. And what it's also telling us is that inside that tree line is actually a fence. So if the owner says, oh, I never knew that was the boundary, I know it was, no, they put a fence in there. They actually declared that to be the boundary. There's a fence inside that. And so that's the pool, okay? That's the outline of the pool. And one of the things we're going to learn today is that the thick dark line is always the boundary. And anything inside that boundary is part of the property. And anything outside that boundary is not. It doesn't matter what the seller tells you. It doesn't matter what the listing agent tells you. It doesn't matter what the lawyer tells you. It doesn't matter what anyone says. If it's not inside that thick dark line, it is not part of the property. So if you're representing this as the entire property, including all the way back to the trees, you've got a problem. If somebody buys that representation, you've got a problem. If your client is buying this property, you've got a problem because the boundary cuts right through the swimming pool. When we look at this now, because that's not part of the property at the back. When we look at it like this, that's what it looks like. The red piece is actually not part of the property. And so if your client said to you, you know what, we want to move out of the city, we want to move east, we still want to be on the GO train line to be able to get into Toronto, but you know what, find us a beautiful estate property with a pool in the backyard. And you go, I'm on it. I'm your person, I'm your agent, I'm on it. And you find this, and you convince them that this is a good buy, it's a good price, it's just what they need, and they go and buy it. And then they find out when the school gets sold to the developer, true story by the way, and the developer says, you're on our land, we want to reclaim our land here. Imagine how that buyer feels about their agent now. Having said, please, just go find this. I don't have time, I'm working on Bay Street, I don't have time for this stuff, you're a professional, go find your place. Imagine the repercussions. Imagine what happens to your reputation in that one client's eyes in this particular case. Not to speak of the potential for a lawsuit or a lawsuit or having to deal with a title insurance claim after the fact. This is so prevalent. You might say, come on, this is a swimming pool. Nobody builds swimming pools over the property line. You would be amazed. How many swimming pools in the GTA are built without purpose? Because don't forget, the builder doesn't care where he puts it. The builder is not responsible for making sure it's inside the boundary. You as the homeowner are responsible. You tell the builder where you want it. It's your responsibility to make sure that pool's inside the boundary, the pool, the deck, whatever it is, the addition, the driveway, the curb, whatever you're building, it's your responsibility. So that's an example of why this is important. Because by the way, if you bought that plan, it would have cost you $298. You would have seen it right away after today, and you would have gone, there's an issue here. If you're on the listing side, you sit down with your client and go, what gives at the back end? You know about this? We can't represent this. The boundary right through the pool. What do we do about this? And there's all kinds of remedial action you can take on it before you list. On the buying side, you get that survey even before you put the bid in. Please, never put a bid in on a house with a pool unless you get a survey that shows the pool is actually inside property lines.
So how did that was solved?
So it was solved, good question. The way it was solved is the developer here in their plans, they were good guys. They decided that they would change their plans so that they wouldn't have to take this land, right? Now, they do own this land, but what they did is they granted this owner an easement over this portion of land so that they wouldn't have to rip out the pool and all the rest of it. So they granted the owner of this property granted an easement to this landowner for this piece of land. That was a really fortunate outcome for these guys. Most developers, especially ones here like in the city, no way, absolutely not. Now that easement cost a ton of money. These guys paid heavily for it, but nonetheless, they didn't have to rip the pool out. It was less expensive than relocating the pool. So here's what we're going to do today, guys. We're going to break this down really into two separate sections. There's two separate things to learn today. The first is, I want you to be the gatekeeper. I want you to become the gatekeeper for your client. On either side of the deal. The gatekeeper is actually to be able to say, I'm in charge of making sure any survey document that enters into the deal, from wherever it comes, that I know whether or not this document is acceptable to be part of a legal process that is a real estate transaction. And today, in the next 10, 15 minutes, you're going to learn how to say, yep, we can take that and submit it, or no, that is not a real document. That's not a legal document. That's not a survey plan. You're going to be armed with that information. And if you leave today with just that, you're way ahead of 99% of agents out there. Most agents, they say, give me a survey. They're given a document. Okay. They don't have the tools or the knowledge or the experience to be able to say, no, that's crap. We can't use this. It's not a legal document. My client's in jeopardy if I accept this document and we use it, we make decisions based on it. So we're going to talk about how to identify an official survey plan and identify the different kinds of surveys that you can and cannot use in real estate. There are many different types of survey plans that surveyors create that you cannot use in real estate. We'll go through those. Then we'll get into the second part, which is how to read it. We're going to look at 6 things. All you need to know how to identify a survey plan is 6 things. It's a 6-part process. It takes 5 minutes. That's all you need. Because at the end of the day, we're not asking you to become survey experts. We're asking you to be the triage. When you go to the hospital, you don't get to see the doctor right away. You get to see the triage nurses. And the triage nurses will sit down, take the temperature, take the blood pressure, and all that stuff, and make a determination as to what that next step is, right? You're the triage nurses for anything to do with boundaries. You're the ones who say, you know what, I suspect there's something serious here. Let's go talk to the surveyor. Or, you know what, we can deal with it this way, we can deal with it that way. That's all we're trying to get you armed with here. So don't think that we're going to try and make you surveyors out of this. Not the case. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to use it and start trouble and what to do when you're not sure. Fair enough? Is that what you're all here for? Yeah. I have to ask that. One time, 2 people walked out saying, this is the selling seminar. What's going on? I don't do selling seminars. Okay, so let's start off. Now, let's look at the documentation, first of all, that you have. Does everyone have a package? Yeah? There's a couple of things you got in here. First is my business card. We have a staff that, during business hours, is available for you to phone and ask questions. It's free. We're there to support you. Our business model, our end customer is always the homeowner. But we know that for us to be able to influence the homeowner, we have to have you on our side. We know that you are, from a pure business standpoint, you are our pathway in to our end client. So we want to work with agents who appreciate this stuff, who we help. Because we know if we can help you be better and safer and manage risk, we know that you'll return the loan eventually when you do need something related to what we do. Hopefully you'll say, we should go with those guys. I learned something there, and we've got some good advice. We've called 3 times and they helped us. So please, the number's on the card. If after this seminar, you have not remembered anything, because I'm such a horrible presenter, that you haven't remembered anything, but all you remember is, if there's a problem, I can send Chris an email with a plan. Just remember that. If you receive a plan and you're not sure, send me an email with that plan and say, Chris, yes, no. In other words, can I use it or can I not? You don't have to send me an email saying, hey, we were at the seminar, it was really good, really enjoyed it. I think you offered this. Would it be okay if I sent you a survey? No. Send me the plan in an email, yes, no. Okay? And I'll send you a reply, yes or no. It's that simple. We get dozens of these every day. Please use us. Okay? We've worked with you guys here at this agency, this brokerage, for 5 years on this stuff. So many of your colleagues in this brokerage use us. Please use us.
Which number is this? Is the first one? Somebody will answer.
Yeah, the 289. That's fine. Yeah, the mobile is my mobile. Call me on my mobile if you like, but some people do. Sundays. Hey, I'm just about. No. It's not. No, I'll take it Sunday. Bookmark. We're old school. I still love bookmarks. Search, click buy. This document here, leave it for later. This just summarizes what we have to offer as a company to you guys. Okay? Today, for this seminar, it's these two documents right here. Okay? We have a really great survey plan of a property on Old Young Street. Start with here. And then we also have a cheat sheet. Everything we're going to learn today is on this cheat sheet. All right? This is gold. This is the golden ticket today. Everything we're going to go through is summarized on here. So we're going to refer back to this a lot. All right? So step one. Oh my goodness. Really?
1 hour. Yeah, change the pendants to.
You see, I have a Mac. You don't do this on a Mac. But thank you. Thank. 4 hours. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's start off with how to identify an official survey plan. This on your cheat sheet is B. I don't know why it's not A. It's B on your cheat sheet. Okay. So how to identify an official survey plan? So I apologize for the quality of this, the way this looks on here, but good news, you've got your own copy of this plan in front of you. Okay? So when you receive a survey plan, you're on the buying side, and the listing agent sends you a survey, or they've even attached a survey to the listing. Or maybe they haven't got a survey, and you've come to us because you want to get a survey for this client. You want to make sure that everything's covered up. You come to us and you download a survey from our system. You buy a survey from our system. Or you're on the listing side, and the homeowner gives you your client gives you a survey. Where do you get it from the neighbors? Wherever you get it from. The first thing you should be doing is saying, I'm not just accepting this. I need to confirm that this is actually a survey plan that I can use for the transaction. So you're going to look for 4 things on the face of this plan. 4 things you're going to look for identify. Okay? The first is, in this case, in the top right-hand corner. It's called the title box, right up there. So the title box, every survey plan has a title box. And that title box contains the locational attributes, the locational information of the properties being, the property or properties being surveyed. It's not the address. It's the lot and the plan, or the parts of the lot and the plan, the lot and the concession, right? So in this case, you'll see that up there, in the top right up here, it says part of lot 123, 124, 125 on plan M459. Now, plan M459 is the plan of subdivision, and this survey is focused specifically on 3 lots, or parts of 3 lots, 123, 124, 125. Okay? And so the first thing you're looking for is that. Now, it may be up in the top right-hand corner. It may be in the middle. It may be top left. It may be anywhere on this document. Don't always look for it in that top right-hand corner. It could be anywhere. This particular survey was done recently in AutoCAD. The survey's done before, what, 1995? Hand drawn. But you're still looking for the evidence of that information. It'll be hand drawn, handwritten at the top. Parts, survey plan of parts of lot 123, 124, 125 of plan, whatever, right? Handwritten. That's okay, as long as that information is there.
Is this exactly the same as legal description?
No. This information will be in the legal description. First of all, this may be a survey of 3 properties. Lot 123, 124, and 125, right? In which case, no, it's not the legal description. Oh. It could be that this property is all 3. In this case, it is. But this is just the first piece of the legal description, the locational component. It doesn't show the easements. It doesn't show any of the other information. It's the legal description. But no, you can't go to the plan and just take this and say this is my legal description. It's just the location I can on it, right? Okay, so the next thing you're looking for is the surveyor's name, signature, and the date on the plan. So in this case, again, look at your copy, it's much better. And down here, the bottom, right there, right? And this particular plan, right down there. Am I pointing to the right place? Yeah, yeah. Okay. You'll see that it says, two things in there. It says the date, February 28, 2011. Okay? And it also says signature. That would be the surveyor's signature. Surveyors are strange people. I work with them every day. I love them, but they're strange people. The surveyor who gave me this particular plan refused to actually sign it. So I could never sign that. It's a legal document. Right?
Paid for that to them. Are they going to sign it?
No. This is our survey, and I just wanted an example for you guys,
yeah.
right? He says, I couldn't sign that. That makes this a legal document. It is a legal document. We did this. No, my signature's not going on there. I didn't do the research. Can you just put an X or something? No, I'm going to write signature then. All right. So signature is where they would sign it. You see a surveyor's signature, right? And below that, you'll see it. It'll say their name, and it'll say OLS, or Ontario Land Surveyor. This is critical, guys. This is absolutely critical. Every survey plan that you accept has to have both the date and the surveyor's signature on it, because this is a legal contract. Don't think of this as a drawing, a picture. Think of it as a legal contract. And as you guys well know, think if you've got a 10-page legal contract, right? If it isn't signed, is it valid?
No.
It's not valid. Same with the survey. If it isn't dated, is it valid? It's not valid. Same with the survey. If your survey is missing the surveyor's signature and the date, you cannot accept it, because there's a good reason for it. When these surveys are produced, the surveyor in charge of the project communicates back and forth with his draftspeople and his field crews who did all the measurements and took all the dimensions and everything, 3, 4, 10, 20 times sometimes. And they produce the plan, and he goes, no, I don't like this, move there to this, go recheck this number, I don't think it's quite right, maybe there's a mistake here. You know what, the client's really interested in this, go take a few more measurements, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So there are a ton of these out there in an office that don't have signatures and dates on them. There are very few, one, that is signed and dated. So you have to make sure it has a date and a signature. 1, 2, yeah.
Maybe because, as you said, it's a legal document, so it should have 6 essential elements. One of them is offering acceptance. When there is no signature, that means it's not accepted. So this
Right.
element is missing, so it's...
That's right. It's the survey, it doesn't represent the survey's opinion. Right. Question 2.
That happens a lot. You get
Yes.
survey not signed, or no date on it, or no date on it, or no
Yeah.
signature.
What happens more often is what we're going to talk about in a minute, which is agents photocopy just a piece of it. And listen, occasionally, maybe one in 50 times, we'll get an agent who's got a survey plan that doesn't have a date on it, or it doesn't have a signature on it. Somehow they got slipped a draft copy, and then they took that and ran with it, and worked with it, a draft that wasn't signed, right? So you're going to look always for the survey date and signature. Now again, if this is an older plan that was hand-drawn and handwritten, usually the surveyor's name and their signature and the date is usually at the top, like a title. We used to write them like letters, right? It used to be all the way at the top. So don't get stuck on where this is on this particular plan. Get stuck on looking for the evidence of these features. Right? Next, the survey firm. I do not expect you to learn all the survey companies in GTA. Not at all. What I do expect you to do is look at that name and see if it screams, we are not a survey firm. If it says Smith and Smith Landscapers,
Oh, yeah.
Smith and Smith Landscape Design, Jones and Smith Architects, Phil and Bob's Engineering Firm. These are not survey firms. They do not have surveys. Some engineering firms do, but that's a different thing. If it specifically says that it's not a survey firm, question it. Because architectural drawings look very much like survey plans. In fact, they're based on survey plans. But architectural drawings are not surveys. It's not signed by an architect. site plans are not surveys done by surveys. They're done by planners. You cannot use those in a real estate transaction. So just keep an eye on that one down there, okay? And then the last one is the association sticker. And this is something you're going to look for, but sometimes it's not going to exist. The association sticker is literally a roll of stickers that we have at the front of our office. Each one of these, they're numerically sequenced. Each one is unique. And this is all part of controlling quality and distribution of plans. What this does is it allows us, when we finally finish the plan, the surveyor signed it and dated it, the surveyor puts a sticker on it, takes a sticker, sticks it on it, embosses it, right? And then this gets scanned as the final original plan. Now that started in the early 90s, that system. So look at the date. If it's newer than early 1990s, you should look for the sticker. If it's 2010, look for that sticker. If the sticker's not there, you can't accept this plan.
It's not valid.
Nope.
What date is not valid?
It's not valid.
Which date?
Early 1990s, between 1990 and 1992. Somewhere in there. And again, if you're unsure, send me an email, yes, no. Okay? It's the yes, no email. Send it to
Excuse me, what's the importance of the sticker?
The sticker allows a surveyor, it's another way of the surveyor proving that this is his or her final opinion on the boundary. Without the sticker, you can forge stuff, right? You can take a draft plan that isn't signed and dated, forge it. Who's going to know? Doesn't have a sticker.
But after 2000, 2010, doesn't matter. If you don't have that.
No. Before the 1990s. If it's older than 1990.
After 1990?
After 1990, sticker.
Oh, after.
Yeah, this is a new system, a newer system. No sticker. So,
But it's still valid.
okay. So before 1990, you're looking for these three things, always. Always, these three things. And if you're unsure, send me the yes, no email, okay? After 1990, you add a fourth element to what you're looking for, the sticker. Okay?
Okay.
Right? That's B on your cheat sheet. So in this particular case, one of the things that you'll notice is right at the top there, in the title box. Yes.
You said that's post 1990, so anything prior to 1990, what does it have?
No sticker. No sticker.
No embossing.
Correct. It will be embossed, but you won't
Oh.
see that on a photocopy,
Okay.
right? If you have the original, you see it, but
Yeah.
usually it's all PDFs now.
Yeah.
Run around.
Okay.
Okay. So one more important thing to take a look at, which takes us into the next piece, and that is, if you look closely at the title box, you'll notice that at the very top, above the location component, it says, what does it say? Anyone see it?
Surveyor's real property.
There you go, surveyor's real property report. Okay, that tells you the type of plan that this is. There are literally dozens of different types of survey plans. That always tells you the type of plan. In this case, this is a surveyor's real property report. Get used to that as being the gold standard for real estate. It is the best type of survey to use in a real estate transaction. In fact, it's a standard that was developed specifically for a real estate transaction by the surveyors, by the survey community. So always look above that in that title box at the very top for the type of plan. And in a minute you'll see why that's so important. But in this case, with this plan that we're looking at right here, it's a surveyor's real property report. Sometimes that's called a plan of survey. Sometimes if it's older, it's called a building location survey. We'll get to this in just a second. But that's where you see the type of plan. And then here you can see the survey was completed on February 22nd, 2011. Okay? The date's really important because whenever you attach a plan to a listing, or whenever you get a plan for your boundary due diligence on the buying side, you always have to caveat your thoughts and your assumptions and your conclusions with, this is the state of the land and the boundaries on this date. It's like a photograph. You can't take a photograph of the property on February 22nd, 2011 and say, well, that's how it is right now, right? If this is a 25-year-old plan, and the fence on that plan is off the boundary, you can't immediately assume that 25 years later, the fence you see today is in the same location off the boundary. If it's a 6-month-old plan, yeah, there's a good chance it is the same fence. Maybe not, maybe yes. These are the questions you go through. Right? You've got to caveat everything you do with the date. So let's talk now about what survey plans you can use out of all the different types of surveys that exist out there. By the way, this is another example of what a surveyor's real property report looks like. It's dense with great information. Buildings, structures, fences, measurements, everything that you need. order to be able to look at that property.
What it's called?
So surveyor's real property report.
Still it's our survey, still it's our plan?
Yeah. Sorry?
So still we have real property report, but more than only one building.
Yeah, you
Showing
can.
everything else.
No, that's the register plan. That's the end plan. We'll get to that in a second.
That's end plan.
Yeah.
So if this is our plan,
No,
so
this is
that
not our plan.
we don't say real property report as our plan.
No.
That's what we
Two
have
separate
studied in books.
Two
We
separate.
call it our plan.
Two separate things.
Oh my goodness.
We'll show you. Yeah. The stuff you've been taught. Listen carefully. Okay. Okay. So when we're looking at the type of plan, right? The type of plan. The type of plan. If you see in the title box up here, if it says surveyor's real property report, if this says plan of survey or building location survey, gold. Because all three of those types indicate that this isn't just a survey of boundaries, but it also includes the buildings, the structures, the features, not topography, but the features like the fences, the decks, anything physical that's been built, sheds, pools, patios, right? Anything physical that's been built, and its relationship to the boundary. It's always about relationship to the boundary. In actual fact, even though we care about the physical features, what surveyors care about is the boundary. And the only reason surveyors put that stuff is to say, the building is this far from the boundary. You're looking at it going, how far is the boundary from the building? Surveyors don't care. Here's the boundary. The building is this far away. The pool is this far away. The shed is this far away. Those measurements work both ways for you. So plans you can sometimes use. This is where we get into the R plans and stuff, right? Subdivision plans. You guys are all familiar and comfortable with subdivision plans. Yeah, you use them sometimes, the end plans. What do you see on a subdivision plan? When you open up a subdivision plan, what do you see? What does it show? Anyone?
In subdivision plan, you see the plan of more than one building.
Yeah.
There are 10, 12.
More than one, yes. What else?
We usually use it when we have one property, we don't have survey for that, so we knock next door and we ask them to give us the end plan, because usually the depth or something can help us.
You're confusing two different types of plan. You're almost so close to being right, just off though. You'll be right by the end of this, okay? What does an end plan, what does a plan of subdivision not show us? Ever.
The building
Where the
by
building is
building.
located.
Buildings,
They don't show buildings.
buildings.
All they show is the boundary and the
What?
road.
Yeah, boundaries, roads. Why do they not show buildings?
Because that's before they even build it.
Yes, yes, exactly right, exactly right. This is the thing. It took me a while to get. I'm not a surveyor, but I'm a tech guy. I had to learn all this. I only know a little more than you do, maybe. Maybe some of you know more than I do, but I should have said that. Shouldn't I? The truth of the matter is this: subdivision plans are the plan that is submitted to the city. When a developer buys a piece of farmland or a big piece of land, it's still a cornfield, and goes to the city and says, I want permission to turn this one big lot into 150 small lots with these roads and these features and everything else. May I have permission to do this? And they go back and forth with the city, back and forth, back and forth. And eventually the city says, yes, we approve this. And the second they approve it, what the city does is says, this area of land is now no longer known as Block 5 Concession 3, is what it used to be called. That name is erased. This area of land is now called Plan 65N 12345, or it's older Plan 765, or Plan N, so many different ways of saying it. It's a subdivision plan, and it gets a new stamp up in the corner from the city that says, yes, we've approved this, and we've renamed it that. Okay? That now becomes the blueprint for the developer to go build. The developer now has to go build within those boundaries. Nothing's being built, it's still a cornfield. So when you get the subdivision plan and you say, oh no, there's no houses on it, we're not going to refund you, because we say to you right up front, no houses, no houses, no houses. This is why they don't have any houses on it, okay? It doesn't mean they're not useful. For the last resort, they can be useful. And our plans, reference plans, are very similar. Reference plans as well are used to subdivide land into smaller subdivisions. So if you've got a 150-foot lot, 100-foot wide lot, and you want to subdivide it into two to build and sell, you use an R plan to do that. There's a process for that, okay? But again, R plans tend not to show buildings. Sometimes Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Try and avoid them if you can. Use them as a last resort. But don't expect to be able to do the kind of boundary due diligence on the property you see today if you're looking at a subdivision plan or a reference plan. Okay? Because they typically do not show buildings. So when can you use them? You use them as a last resort. You use them as a last resort. You want to do boundary, you're listing a property, you want to disclose as much as you can, you look everywhere, you can't find a surveyor's real property report of any age for this property. You just can't find it. You come to us, you meet the neighbors, nobody can find you anything. Nothing still exists for that property. So what do? You don't do nothing with the subdivision plan, because at least that confirms the shape and the size and the location of the lot. It doesn't give you any information about the buildings, or the fences, or the pools, but at least it confirms the lot. Yes.
How does it work when it says plan M459?
Yeah.
And
So,
you see the building.
well, this isn't Plan M459. This is a survey, the surveyor's real property report of lots 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, or 1, 2, 5 that are located on that plan. All right? So, sorry, Michelle. So,
It's down there.
thank you. This is worth taking a small detour on, okay? So, you're the developer, you buy this acreage, right? This is, 1.5 kilometers and 1 kilometer. Big, right? It's one lot. It's called Lot 3, Concession 5. This whole thing is called Lot 3, Concession 5. That's what it's been known as for decades. You buy it, you go to the city and you say, I want to build a subdivision. And you say to the city, here's what I want to do. I want to put a road in this way, I want to put it that way, I want to do this. Then what I want to do is I want to go like this and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Do this. Really, I'm not a developer. My shapes like that, right? We do this. And then we say, we propose that we start with this as being lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 101, 102, so on, right? That's what we're going to name them. The city eventually says, yes, you're good to go, right? From that moment on, the city says, from now on, this piece of land is renamed. It's no longer Lot 3 Concession 5. It's now Plan, let's call it this, M459. This area is now called Plan M459, right? So, whenever you are dealing with this property, how do you refer to it?
Not 6
And
months.
Lot 6, Plan M459. This one, Lot 8, 459. This one, 101, 459. Okay? This property over here, though, was interesting. Somebody did a big property. And what they actually did is there were actually 3 lots. 125, 126, and 127. Somebody bought all 3 lots. He was the builder, right? And he said, no. I am owning all of this. One property. What is that property called?
ABC.
Not
Well,
1,
1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 7.
123, 125, 126, 127 of Plan 459, M459. If we as a survey company, you own this now, you contract us to come and do a survey of this property because you want to add a pool or an addition or something, what would we call the survey? We would call it a surveyor's real property report, right? Of lots 1, 2, I got the numbers wrong, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 5. That identifies the property on Plan M459. This is the naming of the property, right? When you sell this property, you're selling the lot and plan naming of it. Does that answer the question? You guys got it? It's not rocket science, right? Okay, move along. The golden rule is basically, if you see on your plan that it's got buildings and structures, it's probably a great one to use because it gives you a depth of information that you're not going to get on the M plans and the R plans. The M plans is the subdivision plan, the R plans are the reference plans, right? So if they don't show buildings, but there's still a survey plan, use them as a last resort. Don't expect to be able to get a depth of information out of those because they're not going to show buildings, right? So in this case, it's a surveyor's real property report. It's got buildings on it, this one here. This is a plan of subdivision. Now with this one, note that here is the location of the title box, parts of lots 7 and 9, concession 6, right? And what's interesting about this is that I call it the legal description. You've got me going on legal description. The title box here says this is parts of lots 7 and 9, concession 6. So when they went to the city, they said, we want to redevelop what is currently called Lot 3, Concession 5. And this is what we want to do with it. So we are looking at parts of Lot 7 and 9 of Concession 6, this whole thing, and we want to do something with it. And the city eventually came back and said, yeah, we like it, do it. At that point, the city gave it its new name in a box that's off the screen here. And that name would be 65M12345 or Plan M, whatever, and so on, right? It now gets its new name. But what's interesting about this is that if we zoom into this area, to what we were saying, right? Lot dimensions, lot locations, lot numberings, and that's it, no buildings. There's nothing that you build, it's still a cornfield. Yes? $20 later on. Thank you. So this is a reference plan. Yes?
Is there any place on survey that shows us what type of registration it has? It's land title registered?
No, not on the survey. No, that's the parcel register. Great question, though. So this is a reference plan. And this shows you up here, go next, okay, 1 second. This shows you up here, this is the box that the city fills in to say, yes, we approve this, and now here's its new name. Okay? That's what it looks like. So if you see a survey plan and it's got all the markings on it, right? And then up here you see the city's box that says, yep, we've approved this, here's the signature, here's the date, and this is the new name for this land. Then you know it's either a reference plan or a registered plan. Good question. Brian.
So say you're buying vacant land from off of a developer bought the land that developed it,
Yep.
and now they're selling just the land, no building.
Yep.
Is it acceptable to buy the lot without the survey, just off the subdivision plan?
I would never buy a piece of land without a survey. Ever.
Even if it's off
You
the-
can. There's no law that says you have to, unless it's part of the process to being subdivided.
Yeah.
In which case, the lawyer's going to want to know, and the lender, if the lender is involved, they're going to know that have we confirmed the extended title.
Okay.
So it's not legally required. Great question. It's not
Yeah.
legally required. It's highly advisable. And if you've got a really good real estate lawyer involved, they will not let you go forward without that.
Okay.
Right? Yes.
So this is a reference plan, that's when you're subdividing a smaller
Yeah.
plot of land, and then subdivisions for the larger, the registered plan. Which one is that one?
It took me a year and a half.
Okay.
It took me a year and a half to get it. So a registered plan is a plan of subdivision.
So it's another version of plan of subdivision.
It's another name for the same thing.
It's another name. Oh.
I'm so sorry that my industry doesn't use this stuff. You don't get in the weeds on that. For the purpose of what we're doing here, stay up at, does it show buildings, does it not show buildings? Okay? Stay up there. If you want to go deeper, wow, just don't. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Yes?
I was confused, actually. I remember the book said R plans for severance. So it was correct.
So a reference plan is used to change the boundaries of the property, right? To change boundaries of the property. If you're doing a huge subdivision thing, you'll go with a subdivision plan. But if you're adding an easement, if you and I are neighbors and you've decided, and I accidentally built a piece of my property, my pool, over your property, and you now want to grant me an easement over that, our plan is the document that describes what we want to do, that goes through the legal process that gets approved. It's the diagram. It's the diagrammatic representation of the intent. And when it gets approved, it goes on title. And it goes in the legal description. Okay? So whether it's an easement you're granting, whether it's a boundary that's being changed, whether you're severing a piece of land or combining two pieces of land, the reference plan, let's call it what it is, the reference plan is what is used. Okay? But reference plans like this one, this reference plan was used to take this large lot and subdivide it into two, but add another part down the middle as a mutual access way for whatever reason. Maybe the city required a roadway to go up between because it's just too big, right? So say 20 years down the road, you bought this. And then somebody gives you, now you want to sell that property. And you say, well, yeah, I've got a survey plan of this, and this is what you give. It doesn't show your building, it doesn't show your driveway. All it shows is the severance of the land. So from that perspective, it is valuable that it shows your lot, but no buildings. Yes?
Is reference plan something that's done ahead of the work or after the work is done?
Ahead.
Right, so it may not accurately reflect what the property status is.
Well, it'll accurately reflect what was the permission
Intended
that was
was
granted, right? And the thing is, it's not like a boundary is something that you pick up and move. The reference plan isn't going to show the buildings. Sorry, isn't going to show the intent of what they want to build. So it's not like they're saying, here's where we're going to put the building. That's a whole different process that architects get involved in the city. But this is just saying, in this particular example, this is what the boundary used to be when it was called, when it all had one name. And we just want to split it into parts 1, part 2, part 3, with these specific dimensions.
But it still have to be approved before.
I'm sorry?
The reference plan, is it done?
Before. Again,
Does it still have to be approved?
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, you can't just do it. Yeah. Usually, the mechanism for approving these is through the municipality and their committee of adjustment. They're the ones that approve a minor variance. They're the ones that approve this kind of severance of land. They're the ones that approve easements, the granting of easements.
So you might still have a reference plan, but it was never approved.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And that is something to be aware of. It's a really good point. If you get a plan like this, this is complete. It was never approved. Somebody asked permission, it wasn't granted. So you can't use it. This is why we say reference plan, subdivision plan, trust everyone. Okay, let's move along. What can you not use? So the top, and this is, I think, still A on your cheat sheet, plans that you cannot use that are made by surveyors. These are types of survey plans. You can't use them. Topographic. If it says topographic plan of, do not use it. The boundaries are not confirmed. All you really care about is extended title boundaries. Topos do not have their boundaries confirmed. It's a cheap and easy way of getting a depiction of a property without having to pay for the work that goes into confirming boundaries. For you, it's not useful. Grading plans, same thing. Sketches of. Now, beware the word sketch. 1990 is a big date in surveying. Not only is it the date that the sticker came in, that's something you need to remember, but it's also the time period in which the word sketch went from being a good word to a bad word. You'll see some old surveys from the 20s, the 50s, the 70s, the 80s that say sketch of survey showing. That's okay. That's what they used to be called back then. Old surveys, it's okay if they're called sketch of, providing that they have all the identifying features. If it's newer than 1990 and it says sketch of, especially if it's very recent, if it's in the last 10, 15 years, and it says sketch of, it's not a survey. That's how some surveyors, it's actually not allowed anymore. It used to be allowed, but that's how some surveyors, again, got around charging the rates that were required. They had a client that didn't want to spend a lot of money, so instead of doing all the work to confirm the boundaries and put a legal opinion, they said, oh, it's just a sketch. Forward the sketch. Beware the word sketch. Sending an email, yes, no. Okay. Plans without identifying features. So yeah, if you've got a plan and it's missing any of the 4 things that we talked about, send it back. Send it back. Send it back. If your client sends you a grading plan, right? It's a grading plan in the title box. Send it back. Do not feel pressure to accept it because they are sending you something, they don't know any different. They're sending you something that's incorrect. You ask for a survey plan. They're sending you a grading plan. They're sending you a topo. They're sending you a plan that's not signed or not dated. Okay, send it back. And the final one is unreadable or incomplete documents. How many of you have dealt with a plan that you know is from the 1950s? It's been through one too many fax machines. And you can't read the damn numbers. If you cannot read the smallest letters and numbers on that plan, send it back. It's like having a legal contract that's been through the fax machine a few too many times, and you can't quite read the words. Right? You can't use it. The words are everything. The numbers are everything. Right? And by the same token, one of the things that happens today a lot is most agents, most people have an HP or an Epson or a Brother printer scanner at home, right? Or in your home office. You get a large plan like this. It's 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. You forgot to send the survey. Crap, what do I do? I need to get away. What do I do? So you get this, right? And you put it on your flatbed scanner and you scan it. 8.5 by 11. And you're like, well, you know what? Which bit do I scan? What do I do? You know what? I'll scan the bit that's got the house on it. So you scan that. What have you cut off now? Sorry. What have you cut off? The title box, the signature, the date, the survey form, and the sticker. It's useless. It's like taking the middle 3 pages of a contract and saying, is this okay? It's not okay. It's not okay. All right, so don't fall into that trap. It's not all right to do that. Yes?
For a prompt, if we wanted to get the survey from the city and they didn't have that,
Yes.
I got a recommendation from a friend that we can go to one of those online websites in Ontario.
That's us.
Yeah.
Protect your boundaries,
Is it okay
LCA.
to use those information?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't come here to pitch our services, but protectyourboundaries.ca. If you come to our website, we have the single largest database of survey plans for residential and commercial properties in Ontario. Type the address in, we'll show you. We've got everything and more. The city has, Geo Warehouse, everyone. We've got them all. We've got the biggest collection of survey plans. And if we don't have it in our database, we have a $75 service. You pay $75, and we get a survey research expert to start making phone calls to the surveyors that they suspect might have done work, but that don't share their plans and databases. We can usually find you a survey plan. Okay? So, not survey plans ever. Architectural drawings, engineering plans, landscape drawings, and site plans. They're on your cheat sheet. Refer to your cheat sheet every single time you get a plan, okay? And just protect yourselves. There's a grading plan. You can't really see it on this projection very good, but up there it says grading plan of. Don't use it. Send it back. Be firm. Protect yourself and your client. Be firm. So, let's talk about how to read a survey plan. How is the time? Okay. Let's talk about how to read a survey plan. We're going to go through 6 things. You can download this presentation on our website, by the way. Go to protectyourboundaries.ca. The big button in the middle of the page that says Real Estate Professionals. Go in there. All the presentation doing that. So I want to show you 6 things to do every time you get a survey. It's so easy, guys. All right. So the first thing you're going to do, step 1, is you're going to find the survey monuments. The monuments are the bits in the corner, right? The monuments are the way surveyors mark the ground and a survey to demonstrate the corners of the property. Now, in real life, those survey monuments are usually, most of the time, the huge great iron bars. Iron bars that are either 2 feet long or 4 feet long that are 1.5 inches square. They're iron. They're heavy. They're really heavy. And when a surveyor marks the corner of a property, they will take that, he or she will take that iron bar, and they have to pound it into the ground, so at the very top of the bar is 3 or 4 inches underground. They go all the way in. They're not intended for us or our clients to use, to interpret, to dig up, or if you live in an Italian neighborhood like I do, use to, tomatoes, yeah. The iron makes great tomatoes. It's fantastic, yeah. They're not intended for tomato plants, all right? It's actually illegal to tamper with those. People do, but it's illegal to. Those exist for surveyors to say, listen, I did all this work, I did all this research. For the sake of the next surveyor who comes and surveys this area, I'm going to put something in the ground that they can just find with metal detectors to know that this is what I meant by that. It's for surveyors to talk to surveyors. Okay? On the plan, those monuments appear in a couple of ways. They either appear as a solid black box or I don't know, is that a white box or an empty black box? Whatever you want to call it, a white box, right? Right there, you can see it there. It's on your plan as well. The difference between those, to you, it means exactly the same thing. It means there's a bar in the ground. That's a monument. The difference is that if it's black, it means the surveyor is saying, I did my research, and through my research, I determined that a previous surveyor planted a monument, that's what we say, planted a monument in the ground at this point. I am confirming that I found that monument in that place. That's what the black box means. White means either there was supposed to be one here and it's gone, but I suspect those great looking tomatoes have something to do with it, or it's rusted out, it's really old, or it's now buried under concrete. Somebody's built a driveway over it. And I have decided to place a new bar here myself. So this is found, that is planted. That's the only difference. In either case, it's monumentation. In some cases,
So do they physically take a bar and with a hammer and pound it down there?
try doing it in the middle of February. It's a miserable job. Yeah. Sledgehammers.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not pretty. It's the way
I always thought that it's something, you know, sometimes they have a concrete use where they give it that not.
See, this is why I love coming here. $20 to you later. Some cases it's not an iron bar in the ground. In some cases it's what's called a cut cross. Right? If it's concrete, or if it's a building and you can't get to it, something's been built. Somebody's done enormous great landscaping. They've got one of those enormous great boulders on their front lawn, and it happens to be right on the corner of the property, right? Obviously, you're not going to go and start lifting the boulder, obviously, right? So what do? You do a cut cross. You don't do it right on there. You go a little further away, but you get the grinder out. It's like a grinder, right? And you grind an X or a cross into either the curb or the sidewalk. Sometimes they do it at the curb or, you know, the base, the concrete base on which they put the electrical boxes? Sometimes you'll see cut crosses there. Usually it's in the curb. And on the survey plan, that's depicted as you see. Right? That's all that means. But monuments are first. The second thing you're going to do is the boundaries and the dimensions. You're going to find the thick dark line. You're going to get a highlighter and you're going to go all the way around. The boundary has to close.
Sorry, when you said CC, so where is it exactly? Is that white square?
Yep, right there.
This
This
says
says
the white square and then they say CC. So
this is saying that surveyor, he himself did a cut cross. Because he found the bar here with his metal detector, but it was under cement or something, or under concrete. So he said, let me be safe. While I'm here, I've got everything measured. So the next time around, I'm just going to do a cut cross. Over here, a little bit further over, it's a witness point, right? A little further over, 1 meter west. I'm going to do a cut cross on the curb. Okay? So the next thing you do is you're going to highlight the boundary. You found your monuments, you highlight the boundary of the property. It's always the thick dark line, and it's the line that has all the big measurements on it. And in this case, first of all, a boundary always has to close. It can't be an open-ended boundary. It always has to come around. However many sides there are, it always has to come back to the beginning. Okay? The second thing is that every boundary has a measurement on it, a dimension. Right? And in this case, you're looking at 17.02. What's the scale? Look at the face of your survey plan, and right here you'll see it says metric. This plan is in metric. Okay? 17.02 meters. Now, how many different units of measurement do you think there are? Get it away. Two. So what do we have? Imperial, metric. There's one more. There's one more. You know what it is?
No.
What's that?
Architecture.
Nope. It's called decimal feet. It's called decimal feet, right? 6.5 feet is decimal feet, which is 6 feet 6 inches imperial, which is whatever it is in metric, right? So be careful when you're looking at these dimensions. You always check. Don't assume you know what the unit of measurement is. If it's decimal feet and it says 6.5, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that that's 6 feet 5 inches. It's not. It's 6 feet 6 inches, 6.5 feet. I had an agent buy a plan off my site, calls me screaming at me. your plan's useless. It's a fake. It's a fake. It's a fraud. Give me my money back. He says, look at this measurement. It says 6 feet, 12 inches. Looking at it, I'm like, dude, it doesn't. It says 6.12 feet. Come on. You were at my course. You learned this. 6.12 feet is different from 6 to 12 inches. Obviously, 6 to 12 inches is 7 feet. Makes sense? Decimal feet. Watch the decimal feet. But there we go. So the third thing you're going to do is you're going to look for the buildings, the structures, and the ties. The building is always characterized as, on the map, as the foundation of the structure with all these the little hash marks on the inside. That's how you can tell a building. See that? Right there, and then next door as well. And here's why having a building on a survey plan is so important. Where there is a building, the surveyor has an immovable object from which he or she can give you measurements to the boundary. And so we are looking now at these things called ties. Off the corner of the buildings, off the corner of the sheds, between the fence and the boundary, you're going to see dozens and dozens and dozens of measurements, units of measurement. So in this case, on your plan that you have here, right at the front, we're zoomed in, what is the distance of the boundary from the front of the building here? You see that? 1.82 meters.
Is it side back?
What's that?
What is that? Is it side back?
No, that's the distance from that corner of the building to the boundary.
That is a side back.
Setback. Setback?
Yes.
Setback is more a zoning thing. Yeah, you can call it a setback. But strictly speaking, this is saying the boundary, if you want to know where the boundary is, measure 1.82 meters from the corner of the building. That's your boundary right there. It's clear as day on it. Setback is more about what's the minimum amount I have to, you can't call it a setback. The building is setback 1.82 from the boundary. But don't call it a setback. Just say the boundary is 1.82 from this point on. A back corner is 1.8, 1.8, and 1.79. You've got your full measurements. You can trace out your boundary. Yes.
Always in meters you see that thing, or?
No, this could be 1.82 feet.
It depends on
It could be.
So how would you
Well,
do that?
this is our plan here. We just looked at it and said it's in metric, right?
Metric, right.
In this one.
If it's in metric, it's always in metric.
Everything like,
Every
yes,
metric.
yes. Sorry, I understand the question. I'm
So
sorry.
if it's in feet, I have another plan
Right.
for my.
If it says it's in metric up here, every dimension and measurement on here is metric. If it says feet, everything is in feet. You're not going to you'll never get a mix of units of measurement on a plan. Okay? So not only do you have the measurements from this house to the boundary, but just for safe measure, you have the measurements from the neighboring house to the boundary. And the neighboring house to the boundary. I got to tell you, as a side note, it amazes me. It amazes me that they can install this giant piece of concrete. Like, think about what they do, right? They excavate the hole. They put in the footings. They put in the, what is it called?
Foundation.
Yeah, and they pour the concrete for the foundation. They let it dry. They fill in all the way around. And then the surveyor comes back and says, let me make sure you've got it in the right place. 1.82, 1.8, 1.8, 1.79 to within a centimeter. It's crazy how they do that. I'm fascinated by this stuff. How you can take these huge things and get them built so precisely. It's concrete. Anyway.
Excuse me.
So yes.
I think if why we should, to keep ourselves safe, we should measure the other.
I'll tell you in a second. Yeah. It was just extra information. The question is why we should measure the other side. Double check. Right? The more the merrier. The more measurements, the more distances you have, the better. Right? Double check, triple check, or triple check. So with these setbacks, this is now where you can say, I can now see where the boundary is. If this is the side of the building, and this is the front corner, I can take my tape measure out from the top of the foundation, always the top of the foundation, and I can measure out 1.82 meters, and I can put something here. I can put a rock, I can put a piece of wood, I can put I wouldn't put my phone number, no, but whatever, right? I can put something there. I can go to the other end of the building, and I can do the same thing. Now I can walk out into the front of the driveway, into the street, and I can look down that imaginary line because I can see my 2 points. I can look down my imaginary line, and I can ask myself, do I see anything crazy here? Is there a pool that goes over it? Is there a deck that goes over it? But does the fence do this? That's all you have to do. You don't have to go any further than that in your expertise. But to do that, and if you do that, you're doing more than 99% of agents do in boundary due diligence. This is the basic. Measure it out. Where is everything in relation to this? Because this is legal representation. The boundary, when this survey was done, and today, is 1.82 meters from here. And it doesn't matter if somebody's built a fence over here, over there, if they built, it doesn't matter. That's where the boundary is. And you can have certainty in that. That gives you an enormous amount of knowledge now. The fourth thing you're going to look for is encroachments. This is not your survey. This is a property in Mississauga. This is the back of the property here. This is the backyard. The road is up there somewhere, and the house is over here, right? The street's up there. So you're looking for encroachments. Encroachments are things that shouldn't be on the boundary, but are. Okay? It's a physical feature that shouldn't be on the boundary that has been built on the boundary. In this case, there's the boundary in blue. You see that? We see that there's the monument back there, and we're looking for the thick dark line there, and there we highlight it. So we can see what we're looking at. So right here we've got this brick and aluminum shed. Why do you think the survey is telling us what it's made of? Why are you telling us, this Mr. or Mrs. Surveyor, what this is made of? You probably need a permit for it. What else? Yeah, you're not moving it.
The size of bulldozer you need.
Yeah. How big of a crane you're going to need to smash it down, right? Yeah, it's brick and aluminum, guys. It ain't moving. This isn't one of those, $7.99 Home Depot pick it up on a skid steer and move it sheds. This is not moving. And the fact that it's got the little hash marks on the inside means that this is a permanent physical structure. Right? So, why is he telling us that? The reason he's telling us that is that right down here, you can see it, clear as day, right? The back corner of this brick and aluminum shed is over the boundary. Well, how far over the boundary? I encourage you, when you get a survey plan and you're examining it, I tend to get overwhelmed when I look at the whole thing. There's so much information. I like to focus in on small areas. So I'm focusing in now on just this area here, because it's this area that I'm interested in to understand what the issue is. And if you see, there's a little leader arrow here that goes from that corner to this notation here. And this says, and by the way, our plan here is in metric. It says 0.217 SE. What do you think that means?
Southeast.
21 centimeters towards south.
That's right. That's right. It means that the boundary is 21.7 centimeters, or 0.217 meters, southeast of this particular, of the corner of the shed. It's always where is the boundary compared to this point that I'm showing you. It's not the other way around, right? But what this is telling you is that this is encroaching by almost 22 centimeters. Is that a problem? No. Problems are always in the eye of the beholder, right? The size of the problem is in the eye of the beholder. But your client is about to buy this property, they might want to know this. And they might still go ahead with it and go ahead with the purchase, but knowing this is interesting. If your client is buying this, and this is a much smaller yard, and you've got a bloody great shed there, you've got to know that this thing's 10 feet tall, encroaching on your property, and you've got a small yard, 30 by 80, 30 by 100 yards, and you've got this in the corner of your property, you might want to know that before you buy it. Especially given that, as we go to the next one, fences, hedges, and walls. Fences, hedges, and walls should be on the property line. Can anyone hazard a guess as to what percentage of fences in the GTA are not on the boundary? Percentages?
60,
60?
30, 30,
30?
90.
90? Who said 99? Who laughed? It's 99 and a half. You laughed. 99 and a half, yeah. Over 99% of fences. The majority of fences in the GTA are not on the property line. Now, some of them are off by a couple of centimeters, a few inches, but very rarely will you find a fence right on. At least half of those are way off the property line. And so this is what that looks like. Again, there's the boundary, there's a hedge, there's a fence inside it. So what these people do, you can tell a lot about what people did here. I'm half Greek. Any Greeks in the room? Great. So I bet you they're Greeks. This is my genetic heritage. I'm going to build a shed back there. Quit nagging me, will you, woman? Quit nagging me. Finally I'll build a shed. I'm going to watch soccer. Come on, let me work. I'll build a shed. I build the shed. It's not because I don't want to build a shed, so I just build it. So I build it. And then I have to build a fence. So where am I going to build the fence? I'm going to build it in line with where I built the shed. Right? That orange line is the fence. With absolutely no consideration for where the boundary is. It starts off the corner of the shed, bisects there, and carries on diverging after that. Same thing on that side. Look at this down here. The surveyor actually told us this fence is 89 centimeters off. Yes?
So.
It's not just Greeks.
No,
It's a general.
I had farmland in Northern Valley, and I was concerned that I knew the fence was in the right place, and I heard about adverse possession, that if the guy next door held on to it long enough,
Yep.
he could eventually own a huge, thin, long strip along.
All right. Let me get through this. We'll talk about adverse possession. Good? Good, important point. Is that good with everyone? All right. So, again, mistakes then. If we zoom out, you can see how this madness proliferates, right? This is that fence. It cuts all the way down here. It continues down there to the hedge. And if you look at the front of this property, what do you see? In the road, you see a house, a shed, a hedge, stairs, fence, shed, right? It's all done at beautiful right angles. But it's off from the boundary, because the boundary is there. So what does this mean? Your client is buying this property. They get this survey. They go, wow, this is our land in here. We thought the boundary was where the hedge was. It's not. It's 2 meters further over. Great. Let's push out to it. What do you think this fellow's going to say? Whoa, what are you doing? That's my landscaping. You can't do that. The boundary's where the hedge was. No, it's not. Boundary dispute. Your client's buying this property. This is an actual fact. It's gorgeous landscaping, ultimately. Beautiful, expensive, professionally done landscaping. They buy this property, they move in. A week later, this owner comes over and says, I'm reclaiming my land. Whoa, what do you mean you're reclaiming my land? It's my landscaping. No, you're on my property. Well, why didn't you deal with this sooner? Why did you wait till now? Oh, because old Bob, who you bought from, we're old family friends. I didn't want to bug him about it. But you, I don't know you. Give me my land back. That is the #1 way boundary disputes happen, following a real estate transaction. Somebody wanted to wait to go after somebody they didn't know. Right? Okay. Number 6, last one, easements. Easements and right-of-ways. Well, right-of-ways are a type of easement. Comes at seminar 6, yes?
So if there is a question about the front of the house, I don't know, sir, I'm a little bit late. Can you explain about the front of the house?
What about it?
How did you find the number? How do you find the number, the depth?
That is a really good question. The number of the house, do you want to know the address?
Not the number of the house.
Oh.
The depth, how big, how long is the depth of the house?
Oh, sorry, look at the dimensions on here.
No, I know, but how do you calculate it from where? From the sidewalk, from the street, from the water?
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And the reason is that the front boundary of the house, you can't see it. It's not the sidewalk, it's not the curb, it's not the boulevard. It's somewhere behind the water shutoff valve. Underwater. Usually that, the water shutoff valve, the driveway on the grass in the front, that's usually on city property. The boundary is usually somewhere behind that.
I was told
Depends.
right on the bound.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's too precise.
Okay, if somebody hire you to draw survey, how do you measure it?
Oh,
Is
the
there-
surveyors?
Yes.
We have all the crazy equipment.
Okay. But where is the boundary, the front of the house? Is the water bound?
It's wherever it is. I'm sorry to say it. I'm not being like intentionally like obtuse on this. The boundary is where the boundary is. We can tell you where that boundary is. There's nothing physically on the ground that you can look at and say the boundary is always here. The boundary is always at the shutoff valve. It's not. The shutoff valve is usually just on city property. It's usually somewhere just behind that, but not always. Those things are fluid. The only way you can know where the front of that property actually is to get a surveyor to come and stake it out for you.
This is the same concept.
Stake it out, monument it, stake it out. Actually show you on the ground where it is. That's $800. It's a lot of work.
Lot of wood.
It's a lot of work to do.
So how come we don't see it in the new subdivision? They already staked, right? Because they have the survey, it does show that.
You see the wooden sticks, right? Yeah, how many times do you think those wooden sticks will be used?
So they don't put
dirt, grass.
So they don't always put those iron ones.
Yeah, so what they do is that in residential surveying, you are required to put iron bars in the two front corners of the property. Residential, you're not required to do them in the back, always in front.
So they are there in the front.
They are, but there's a snag in that. Developers didn't want to pay for that, so the law got changed, so you have to do 2 out of 3. So some properties only have 1. But that's all a surveyor needs. And again, you shouldn't be saying, I found the bar, that's my property line. What if it's a witness point?
Oh.
Right? You cannot do that yourself, not you, your clients cannot do that themselves. If you want to get a legal opinion, go to a lawyer on something. You're not going to represent yourself in court. If you want to find out where your boundary is, you've got to go to a survey. Talk to a survey.
About the encroachment.
Yep.
As a real estate agent, I know there is title insurance that covers whatever. And as a real estate agent, when I see that, what am I supposed to do? Not my client, of course, but how can we solve that issue?
So let me finish this slide. That's the next slide. See, you guys are great.
We're ahead.
What's that? Totally ahead. Easements. Please. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't know if there's an easement on the property. How do you know if there's an easement on the property to give us up to? Legal description subject to, together with STTW, right? Where do you find that information? Land registry. Where do you find that?
Description, legal description.
Where do you get the legal description from?
Impact?
Impact,
Yeah.
Don't go MPAC. MPAC is the assessment legal description, not.
You can buy it. You can buy it.
Always go to GEO.
Or Geo.
Always go to GEO, they're the source. Come to us. If you come to Protect Your Boundaries, we're on a new feature now. You go and type your address in on our homepage, and we say, do you want to go to the property page? Go to the property page. That is a page that we've created just for that property, with everything that we have for that property. Surveys, sellers reports, buyers reports.
So you prepare it, your company?
Yep. And not only that, right at the top, we tell you how many easements are on that property. You haven't paid anything for it.
Your website or Geo warehouse?
Our website. Geo Warehouse is our partner.
How much do you charge for that?
To tell you how many? Nothing. It's free. It's right there on the page.
What's the name of the page called?
It's called a property page, but go to protectyourboundaries.ca.
Let's say you only talk
But-
about, tell us the number of these.
But then you buy the seller's report or the buyer's report for like $100, and we get you all that documentation. The parcel register, which is where you get the legal description from every time. You don't trust the last listing. You don't copy and paste to a Geo Warehouse because you can't prove to a judge that we did that without making a mistake. You have to have the document. We'll get you that document. We'll get you the easement documents. We'll get you all that documentation, and we will interpret it for you for $100. So you can go, it's their fault.
So the survey is included $100?
If you buy the seller's report, the subdivision plan is.
Not the survey.
No, the survey's $300. I can't give you that inside $100. That's
$300.
separate, and you don't always need it either. There are some cases where you don't need a survey, so we're not going to force it on you. Okay? Smooth. Okay. Easements. Nothing's going to kill your deal like an easement. Please be aware of easements. If you suspect there's a mutual driveway, yes, get the survey, because only the survey shows you exactly where it is relative to the house. So just like before, we had the buildings and the distances from the buildings to the boundary. With easements, the survey plan is going to show you exactly where the edges of the easement are relative to the boundary of the buildings. So you can look at it and you can say, is everyone using this easement the way they're supposed to? Yes, they acknowledge that it exists. But are they actually using it the way they're supposed to? Again, you don't want your client buying into a situation where that's not the case. You certainly don't want to be representing an easement incorrectly, because that gives your buyer, who this is the number one reason why clients get out of deals. Your buyer who is now committed to the deal, they signed the APS, they're committed, their financing falls through. If they've got a good lawyer, that lawyer's going to go through and find anything they can that they can claim as misrepresentation to get their client out of the deal. You did nothing wrong. But that's how they get out of the deal. Easements is the number one way that happens. So, how to use a survey plan to spot trouble? To answer your question, you're going to do two things. We've got like 3 slides left. Okay, guys? You're going to do two things. The first thing is you're going to study the plan. We're going to do the 6 things we just talked about. Okay? You're going to ask yourself, is this a real survey plan? Does it have all the identifying features? Can I use it? Is it for the right property? Right? Yes, no. Then you're going to trace the boundary. Then you're going to identify which end the street is. I often get the wrong end, so that's for me personally. You're going to identify the fences and the hedges that are off the boundary. Right? You're going to look for those features, and you're going to look for encroachments. And you're going to look for situations where on the plan it's evident that at that date somebody was using somebody else's land in a way that is considered an encroachment. You're looking for easements and right-of-ways. Does it appear on the plan that everyone's using these the way they want? Or does somebody build a fence 5 feet into it? Okay? And then finally, you're going to look for encroachments on city land and roads out front, usually. Is somebody going to build a porch with this massive big stairway onto city property? That could be an issue in the future. Cities probably usually don't go after people for that, but you are encroaching on city property, yes?
In the survey plan, if we can find that line, where the property line is and where the city line is?
No. You can find the sides easily. You can find the sides, but you cannot tell. You guys, I personally, you cannot tell where the front is. It's very difficult. The only way that happens ever, some survey plans, like this one here, you'll see, not only does this one have measurements to the boundary to the side, it also has measurements to the front. So you can measure from the house forwards on this one. Don't get used to that. Most surveys don't show that. This would be a custom request from this client. Most surveys don't show the front time.
The other thing is actually part of that front is for the city, to the city.
Okay.
There is no way we can find out how far.
You get a surveyor to stake it out for you.
Survey.
You've got to get a surveyor to stake it out for you and show you. Yeah. Okay? So part 1, study the survey plan, make notes, mark it up. Put big red circles around the things that you think you need to take a look at. Then go and walk the land, right? You've got the measurements off the side. Go and approximate where those boundaries are. I told you how to do it before. Rock here, rock there, look down the line, what do you see? Is the fence on the line? The fence today. Is it on the line? Do you suspect any encroachments? Are there any neighboring structures encroaching on the property? Come to 2 seminars from now for title insurance. It's a really important one. There's one thing, there's actually a lot of things that title insurance doesn't cover. But one really important thing that title insurance doesn't cover is if neighboring features encroach on your property. Yeah. Title insurance doesn't cover that, ever. At all. So look for neighboring encroachments on your property.
And such as?
Decks, pools, patios. Title insurance doesn't cover fences either.
How about a tree?
I'm sorry, I'm shattering your illusions about how perfect title insurance is.
How about big trees?
Don't get into trees in the city of Toronto, you'll always lose. Just leave the tree alone. People plant oak trees, saplings, like an inch into the boundary on my property. What's it going to be 20 years from now? It's going to be this, right? But the city of Toronto, we don't even get into trees. So it's complicated.
Did you say title insurance won't cover these encroachments?
Title insurance does not cover anything to do with fences. No. And title insurance doesn't cover anything to do with neighboring encroachments on your property. It does cover some encroachments of your property on neighboring lands. So if you buy a property that is encroaching on a neighboring land, and that neighbor takes you to court over it, title insurance should defend you. Okay? Come to seminar 3 for that, okay? Approximate the right-of-way location. Is it clear? Is it obstructed? Is it encroached on? Are the people using it the way they want to? You go in, you see a mutual driveway, right? Where 2 people are sharing 10 or 12 feet of driveway. The boundary's down the middle. There's an easement either side that they each share rights over. Where does it end? Does that easement go all the way up to the brick? If it does, what's with the hockey net, the 4 bikes, and the garbage cans that are sitting on it? Because the number 1 rule of easements is you cannot block or obstruct an easement, ever. That is not a rule that can ever be broken. So if your client is buying the next door property, and you can see, obviously, that they're using that easement and leaving stuff on it, They might have built a lean-to shed. They might have put maximum grade air conditioner on it. And do it. Ask the question. So to your point earlier on, what do? You stop and you ask the question, but you can't stop and ask the question at the selling side. And you certainly, if you're the listing agent, you can't stop and ask your seller after you've done the closing. This is all about doing it beforehand, before you bid. Don't put a bid in with conditions on surveys. It's a waste of time. Do your due diligence beforehand. Know what you need to know before you're going into it. That's sort of the suggestion in all of this. Draw your conclusions. If you're on the selling side, if you're listing, what is my client trying to get me to sell? Be suspicious. Right? It's like the big dark watermark on the ceiling of the kitchen. You know the bathtub is just above. And you're like, what is this? You're like, oh, I don't see it. Oh, it's just the paint. It's not the paint. The bathtub leaks. Did you fix it? How did you get it done? Be suspicious, especially with boundaries, because you can fix a bathtub and a ceiling for $5, $6 grand. Boundaries issues, hundreds of thousands of dollars you run into. Does what they're claiming look clean? If not, should you disclose up front? This agency is very adamant. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Always disclose. Be clear about what you're selling, so that at a later date you cannot be chased after the fact for non-disclosure. Should I walk away from this deal? You know that customer, right? You know that customer where you're like, my spidey senses are up. This is not worth the 2.5 points I'm going to get out of this if I'm lucky. It's not worth it. I'm walking away. My most productive use of time here is to walk away from this one. On the buying side, start with the question, what is my client's intended use of land? What are they trusting me with? What decision are they passing over to me that they don't want to take care of? What issues have identified on the land, and how will these affect their use of land? What might they have to deal with? I've walked the land. Do I suspect any encroachment? Do I suspect any issues? What do you do next? If you're on the listing side, you get all the documentation. You get the seller's report from us at least. It's $120 for the seller's report. It's the parcel register. It's all the easement instruments. It's every single legal document that's on title. Liens, charges. It's what the lawyer does right at the end. But by you getting it up front, in a protect your boundaries package that looks like dynamite, but if you want, we can brand as yours as well. You're saying, I work with a company that's getting legal documentation for me. This is part of the listing. What it does is it pushes the onus of responsibility for research and due diligence on the buying side. And it protects you from being accused of non-disclosure. So do what you can to disclose on the buying side. Don't take what your client tells you as gospel. Maybe they don't know if there are issues. And on the buying side, please consider doing more due diligence before the bid. Go in bid clean. Do your boundary due diligence up front. Get a survey, measure things out, ask questions, ask us, and keep yourself safe. That's it for the seminar, guys. If you want to hang around for adverse possession, we can talk for 3 minutes on that. Okay. Want to do that? All right. Adverse possession, bonus round. So adverse possession, yes?
Question. If you're listing corner property, usually the corner is at an angle. How do you size the front? What do you say the front is? Just the one that is facing? Do you add these posts? Or
That's a dangerous question for me to answer. It depends on the property. It depends. You take the length of the side that the street that it's named to. So if it's on King Street and Queen Street, if that's the corner that it's on, and the address is King Street, you take the side that is King Street. And if it's a curve, of course.
I mean, like it is rectangular,
Yeah.
but the corner is the angle, right?
Yeah, you got to talk to your broker about how you represent that. I would say a regular lot, approximately this, see survey plan. That's what I would say. But I would reference a survey plan. Don't own that number. If you don't reference something else, that number's on you. You get sued for that number if it's wrong. Reference someone else for it.
Attach the survey.
Yeah, and say as per survey. Okay. So adverse possession, guys, real quick, because you got to get out of here and I got to get out of here. So adverse possession. So the question is, my client owns a piece of property and they've been using this piece of a chunk of the neighbor's property for 5, 50, 20, 7, 6.5 years. Do they own it? Can they claim it? And the answer is maybe.
It's registered, they can. It's not like what they can.
See, we have somebody who knows this stuff, which is good. So, the answer is this. It depends. It all depends. It hinges on one date. The law of adverse possession, more commonly known as squatters' rights, is broken into two parts. The first part says, as of the date that a property is converted to the land title system, all properties used to be in the old registry system, and they were moved into the new land title system. It was an administrative move that gave properties in the land title side certain rights that they didn't have when they were in the registry side. That was the reason for the move. So every property has a date on which it was converted over. They're not all the same. And you can't tell when that date is unless you get the parcel register, part of our packages. That parcel register has that date on it. So as of that date, from that date forwards, you cannot claim adverse possession on that property. So if that property was converted to land titles on January the 1st of 2000, and somebody today says, 12 years I've been using that piece of land, I can claim it. The answer is, you can't. It was converted before the time that you're saying you're making your claim for. It was converted 17 years ago. You can't claim that. Because at the moment the property goes into land titles, you can no longer claim adverse possession against it. You cannot steal land after that date. So the second part of the rule is, well, what happens before that date? And the answer is this. If you can prove continuous and uninterrupted use of that piece of land for a period of 10 years prior to the date of transfer, then you have a case. But let's take January 1st, 2001. Today you would have to prove not just using that piece of land from today, 2017, back to 2000, but another 10 years previous to that. You would have to prove photographic evidence, video evidence, that you used that land since January the 1st, 1990. Right? It's impossible. It's impossible. Because as the owner of the next door land, all you have to do is once in a while go over there, once a year, once every 2 years, once every 5 years, go over there and take a picture of yourself on that piece of land. The case is gone. The case is gone. It's continuous and uninterrupted use of land. It's almost impossible to claim. And when you look at the court cases that go through now, the number of claimants, the number of cases that go through in favor of the claimant are virtually zero. There's hardly any. The mechanism does exist, but just remember the rule is, as of the date of conversion to land titles, you can no longer claim adverse possession of the property. If you can prove continuous uninterrupted use for 10 years prior to that date of conversion, you have a case, but good luck. That's the rule. Make sense? All right, guys, we're done. Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Typically, how much does it cost to do a survey?
A new survey, $2 grand. Yeah. Give or take.
Because right now, if you're going into any place, you don't have a survey, let's say you have a plan of subdivision.
Well, you know what? You don't have to get a new survey in that case. Come to us, pay the $75. You can usually find one from one of the surveyors that doesn't share them electronically. That's a lot cheaper than going and spending $2 grand on a new one.
How much? $75?
$75 and we'll do a search for you. We'll come back and say, hey, we found one, it's with this guy, he's selling it for $150 or $300. It doesn't include the cost of the actual buying the land. Yes.
So on your warehouse, are you not able to get any of the surveys?
Just reference plans and register plans.
I found a survey on one. Some of them are not up there.
So they get them from the same place we do. We own that company. And what we've had to do is spend the last 3 years about $500,000 opening every single one and actually putting it on the right property. That's why they don't come up into your warehouse very well.
So when we buy off your website, if you do get it here to $50?
Average, yes.
Yeah. For $120 pay for the website, what do I get?
So the easiest thing to do is go there, type an address in, bring up a property page. Have a look, take a look at the example of the easement report. Take a look at the seller's report, what we do, and what's in it, and open up the PDF sample and the buyer's report.
And what kind of easement?
Oh, if you buy one of those 3 reports, the greatest detail we go into is the easements.
What kind of easement? Largest easement has been bid.
Any easement that's identified in the parcel register. Legal description on title, it's very good parcel register. What we're not going to give you is unregistered easements that nobody knows.
I can't go to city and they are charging me the registration.
Okay.
Why are you want to any?
Because you wanted to go for it.
If you have the time, if you have the time to do that, you want to do it that way, you want to make sure you are comfortable, you've got all the information. Go for it. We're not the only place to get this. We're the only company that's managing this.
I'm done, I quit.
Have a look and see what's in there.
And this one, the crossway and ask for this one.
Your discount is free education. Tell you what, $25 a seminar. Thanks, guys. I gotta get out of here.